What's up, gamers? Aaron Shack here, and I am live here with another episode of the Shackcast. This is episode 61 of the Shackcast, and we got a special group of things to discuss today from a Superman video game pitch that is not from me. I've done previous videos and discussions on this in the past, but I have found someone else that was posting about this online, so we're going to go through their full proposal and discuss live on the stream. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about Star Wars Outlaws, the PS5 Pro, and more. So yeah, let's start off with a couple things. Star Wars Outlaws. I have a tweet here from Very AFK. This guy says, Outlaws doesn't get enough credit for the way upgrades, abilities work, etc. It's not about XP, it's all about what you do and who you talk to, which in a Star Wars world is brilliant. A mechanically esoteric and commercially risky design that rewards you for living in the world. And then, of course, I responded with, it really does help immerse you in the world. I noticed they don't even talk about the reputation system and how great it is to play one gang against another and steal from even your most loyal allies to become the true Star Wars outlaw. It's really fun. So those are things that really get to the heart of what makes Star Wars Outlaws good. It's the fact that if you want an upgrade for your blaster, your speeder, your spaceship, if you want general skills that you can utilize, you don't level up XP by doing missions. You don't buy things from a skill tree. They just tell you do things in the game world and be rewarded for it. They're like, hey, okay, get 5 kills with a blaster, 5 takedowns, stealth takedowns, or distract an enemy using Nyx and get a takedown 3 times. Hack a door 3 times. Like it's things like that. They reward you with your play style and the way you play the game, and you get these mechanical upgrades as a result of, like, okay, I've been using this thing to hack doors, but now I've gotten to doors that I can't get into, but because I've done successful hacks, I can now upgrade my hacking device using these parts that I've got. And of course, it also forces you to go throughout the game world and find the necessary parts and materials. So it really does feel like you are growing and building your own character by not simply waiting for XP points and just going out and grinding for XP. It's by gaining skill and immersing yourself in said world. And the same thing with the reputation system is that there's multiple factions. You can betray one for another. You can, in fact, do stealth missions where you can steal from everybody and maintain a good reputation with all the different factions within the game, which I think is really cool. Next thing, I have a little tweet here from Paris Lily. He said, Super Nintendo Switch today. And if you've heard me talk about the Super Nintendo Switch, or the Switch 2 as some like to call it, I think it's a terrible name. But the Super Nintendo Switch is the name, man. And I'm glad to see some other people using it. I'm glad to see some other people finally embracing that name. And hopefully it goes mainstream. Hopefully, if Nintendo hasn't already taken notice, hopefully this will cause them to take notice. And maybe we can go from there. So, very excited about that. And I did say, let's be real. That's the best name for it. And it's just facts. If you disagree, I'm sorry. You're just wrong on that one. Super Nintendo Switch. It evokes both the nostalgia of the Super Nintendo, and it lets you know right away, like, hey, it's not just the Nintendo. This is the Super version. Okay, so this is the next iteration. It's better than the last version. There won't be a problem like the Wii U where people get confused and wonder, oh, is this the right one? Is this the wrong one? Did we do something wrong? We also got a little bit of news on Battlefield. Battlefield 3 and 4 is being used as the North Star, says Pella. We have to get back to the core of what Battlefield is and do that amazingly well. and then we'll see where it goes from there. Classes will be returning, modern combat setting. You know, they're heavily inspired by Battlefield 4, 64-player focus. Nice, dense, well-designed play spaces, you know, bringing back the destruction and going away from, you know, trying to almost turn Battlefield into like a hero shooter. They're actually taking a step back and saying, okay, we actually need to make it like class-based again. We need to actually do this right. So, interesting. Final Fantasy 16 is on its way to PC. You can download the demo now. Very excited for the game. Hopefully we'll get to cover it on the channel. But that is one that I'm very, 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 very excited for. Okay, couple more things. These are the inflation-adjusted prices for the PS4 or PS5 Pro. Sorry. So yeah, everyone's been saying that the PS5 Pro being $700 in 2024 is too expensive. I do agree. I think it is. I understand costs are rising. I understand all the stuff behind it. But there comes a point where your consumer is not going to be able to pay these prices. Now, is it true that people like me and hardcore gamers will put their money towards something like this? You know, we want the highest fidelity. It's a niche group of gamers that will be like, no, I have to have the best. Nothing but the best for me. And that's true. And normally I probably would go for something like this if it's true that it's, you know, 4K, 60 FPS, ray tracing, path tracing, whatever you want to throw in the box, right? If that's true, I would go for it. But $700 after just paying like $500, $550 or more, just a couple years ago, just 4 or 5 years ago, it's, and mid-gen refreshes are marginal at best. I always say that. It's always marginal at best. I think Geoff Keighley's wrong on this. I mean, trying to inflation adjust to show that we've been headed this way for a long time, it's just not very true. I mean, the PS3 was $600 back in 2006 if you got the fat version, which is the one I got. But I mean, here's the thing. There was value in the PlayStation 3, okay? It could play PS2 games, it could play PS1 games, and it played PS3 games. What do PS4 and 5s do? They don't do backwards compatibility. The PS5 does play PS4 games, but barely. I mean, that's barely all it does. You have 5 consoles, 5 generations of software that, for most of that, the PS2 generation was massive with the amount of games it had. That is a large amount of software that you're leaving on the table, and you could be continuously making money from that. But that's where we are. So I don't get the inflation argument. I don't get the, you know, well, what about Sony? You know, they got to make money too. And it's like, you know, they sold most of these consoles at a loss. And they had to rely on the quality of their software and the quantity of gamers that would want to purchase said hardware in order to play, you know, once again, not a fan of exclusivity, but exclusivity has sold consoles for them. It has been an effective strategy. I don't think it's always the best strategy, but obviously in this case it's working really well. So, and then of course having to purchase the disk drive and the stand separately really makes it a gut punch. It really makes it a gut punch because, I mean, disk drive to me is mandatory. I don't know how you guys feel on that, but I think disk drive is absolutely necessary, and them cutting it out means that actually $699 is not the roof. It's actually like $750 or higher. I mean, obviously they're here in the community notes telling you, hey, the disk drive's $80. You know, if you want that, if you want the stand, it's going to be another $25, and we'll go from there. So, welcome to the stream. We are playing some or not playing. We are talking about the PlayStation 5 Pro. I also included links in the description down below if you want to check out Mark Cerny's tech presentation on the PlayStation 5 Pro. I was watching it, and I'm kind of glad we didn't cover it live because it just doesn't. It's just very hard to tell the difference. It just doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good at all. So, once again, I hope you're enjoying the podcast today. We will get into the Superman video game pitch. We've talked about Star Wars Outlaws. We talked a good bit about the PlayStation 5 Pro. I think here's the thing. If you're willing to sell your existing PS5 and you get a good deal for it, which you probably won't, and you want to buy a PS5 Pro, go for it. If you're on the PS4 and you're looking to finally upgrade, PS5 might be more affordable. PS5 Pro might be that increase in fancy tech that you might be excited for, that will be worthwhile to you. And if you can afford it, go for it. But I think at this price point, my number one recommendation would be to set some money aside. I think if you have the $700, almost $800, because I mean, you got to throw tax on that too, based on where you're at in the country or the world. That's going to get expensive. It's probably going to get up to $800 by the time you pay tax. And then if you're planning to get a game, if you don't even have a PS5 game yet, you're probably going to want a game or two. You're probably going to want Miles Morales or Demon's Souls or Returnal or Final Fantasy 16 or something like that. At this point, you're almost spending $800 to $900 or more getting a PS5 Pro. It's almost better to just build a gaming PC at that point. My initial PC that I built, that's this PC here, but when I first built it in 2016, it was about $1,300. And it had a 1070 in it, so it didn't have the latest GPU, but it was decent. It could run most games at the time. You know, obviously some of the newer games that were coming out would require an initial investment. And so you could probably get a decent PC. A decent PC. Not a great one. Just like a mid-spec for like $700, $800, $900, maybe $1,000. And then you could say, oh, you know what? Okay, it's got an i5 CPU. Let me upgrade that to an i7 or an i9. Or you could say, oh, it's got a 2080 in there. Like maybe I'll buy a 3080 RTX 3080 or maybe a 4090. You know, and you just make those little marginal decisions on your own. And those will be decisions that will obviously up the performance of your PC significantly, whereas I feel like the leap from PS5 to PS5 Pro, it's going to be a small leap. It's a very small, hardly noticeable leap, and you know, if it matters to you, that's great. It does matter to me in some ways, but I'm not at the point where I could invest in that. It's just not at a price point. And what am I going to do with my old PS5? I don't really sell things anymore. I've really become more of a, like, if I buy something, it's part of the collection. Like, and that's why I think very deeply about what purchases I'm going to make, because for the most part, I don't sell things, because when you sell things, sometimes you want to go back and repurchase that later down the line. And that's not helpful. It's not helpful to want something that you previously sold. So I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Be nice, be kind, be courteous, be respectful of others' opinions. Let us know in the comments, what do you think about the PS5 Pro? Is it for you? Is it for others? Would you prefer to set the money aside and build a PC and be able to play everything that comes your way, including the Xbox releases, games that are available on Game Pass, and the eventual port of PlayStation games to PC, which sometimes doesn't always work out so good, as we've seen with The Last of Us. Once again, check out the merch store. Go to aaronshack.com. Check out the blogs that I have there, photography blog, video game content, and articles that I have there, as well as the merch store. Links are all in the description down below. Make sure you're following on YouTube, TikTok, and all the places where podcasts can be found. You can find the Shackcast there. So once again, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Let's get to the big thing. I believe we are at, let me check here. I think we're at the point. Yeah, we got that. We got the Mark Cerny link. I have links in the description down below to Shackcast episode 3, where you can listen and watch my pitch of what I believe the ultimate Superman video game is. The second link that's down in the description down below is what Superman Returns the video game got right, and that would be another video that I would recommend you check out. But today we're going to look at a proposal, a Superman game pitch that I found on Twitter. This is by a Twitter user named James Sigfield, and he says, for years fans have debated whether a Superman game was possible. That ends today. I present to you my pitch for a modern AAA Superman game. So I'm going to pull it up over here, and we'll go through it point by point and discuss it and see what we think here. But yeah, he has a link there to a Google Drive, which will get you access to a PDF. And so there we go. Okay, he's got synopsis, setting, characters, the art, the world, the audio, the VFX and UI, gameplay, traversal, combat, puzzles, controls, structure of the game, main missions, daily planet, tip line, city activities, progression, skill tree, abilities, customization, the story, prologue, 3 acts, and the post-credits. Interesting. So a single-player, third-person, open-world action-adventure game telling an original story set within its own DC universe. Sounds good to me. When advanced AI goes rogue and takes over the city of Metropolis, Clark Kent must use all his powers as Superman to stop it, but when the AI's origins are revealed to be Kryptonian, he must uncover a plot to take over the Earth by sole survivors of his home world. So I've talked about in my pitch what I would do, and it would be probably a Brainiac-centered story. And I think this person is obviously on the same juice. Like, this is the blueprint for how to do this, and I'm hoping maybe based on the tip line there, maybe they're understanding that we need to tackle both sides of Superman. It needs to be like Clark Kent, the journalist Superman, and also, you know, having some gameplay segments as Superman proper. Okay, so Metropolis, main hub of the game, bustling city of the future, home to the iconic locales like the Daily Planet, LexCorp Tower, Clark Kent, Lois Lane, and Superman. Krypton, okay, so they're saying that they want a playable area of Krypton, maybe flashbacks to, you know, Jor-El and Mama Ale. Kent Farm, that could be really cool. You could go back to the Kent Farm, assuming that the Kent family is still alive. You know, if Martha Kent or Jonathan are still alive, then, you know, maybe they could utilize that. The Phantom Zone, that could be cool. That could be like a training area for fighting your rogues gallery. You could do like a boss rush mode where you could go back and rebattle some of the bosses. It could be that you get trapped in there during the story or something. You know, there's some interesting things there. Clark Kent's lived his whole life with one truth. He's not from here. His skin's as tough as steel, muscles more powerful than a locomotive, reflexes faster than a speeding bullet, residing in Metropolis, spending his days as a reporter at the Daily Planet, embraces his truth as a superhero alter ego Superman when advanced AI. Okay, we got that. So powers and abilities: super strength, super speed, flight, heat vision, freeze breath, extreme durability. Weaknesses: kryptonite. Yeah, I mean, makes sense to me. I have noted in some of my videos that What Superman Returns does, where he kind of has stamina, where after a while he kind of gets tired and has to fly up to the sun to regenerate said stamina, rather than having like a health bar and a game over screen and you fail because you die. It's like, that's not really how the character works. And the other thing Superman Returns did right was that Metropolis had a health bar, and it was about protecting the city, you know? Okay. Luthor, okay. I mean, I don't think we need to read this. I mean, I think you should know who Lex Luthor is. 10th level intellect, advanced tech, human vulnerability, ego is okay. Makes sense here. So yeah, mysterious accident on a trip to Smallville. Lex inherited his father's company, transformed them into the world's largest think tank, morphing the city of Metropolis in his image. Okay. Routine test flight for a new commercial airline malfunctions and dive bombs back to the surface, but instead of falling to their deaths, the plane is saved by a new costume hero wearing an S. After the run-in with the newly deemed Superman, Lex vowed to never let him interfere with human achievement again. Interesting. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Mysterious accident. So I'm wondering if Lex arranged his father's death so that he could take over the company, if that's what they're going with here. All right, so Lois Lane, tough as nails, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist from the Daily Planet, hardened from her life as daughter of renowned general. Lois works hard and works harder. When her mother is killed by a corrupt city official, she vows to uncover Metropolis's corruption, no matter how dangerous a lead may be. Interesting. After being saved from the malfunction of the LexCorp aircraft by superpowered costume hero, Lois dubs him Superman, forms an alliance to use his super abilities and her reporting skills in her quest to purge the city. Really reminds me of the plot of Superman Returns, where he rescues everybody from the plane, including Lois. Investigative journalism, self-defense, weaknesses are human vulnerability and stubbornness. Brainiac, advanced artificial intelligence from the planet Krypton, tasked with one thing: preserve all knowledge and culture. When the planet implodes, a subset protocol in Brainiac's programming activates, sending it on a search across the cosmos for a new Krypton. It targets Earth. It's a 12th level intellect, technopathy, and weaknesses, electromagnetism. Lore Zod. Okay, so this is going to be a little different on Zod here, but let's see. Rocketed off-world as part of a secret initiative to preserve Krypton's legacy. Seems very Man of Steel plot-wise. Lord Zod was given one purpose: find a habitable planet for a new Krypton. After crash landing on Earth and being discovered by a group of scientists, Zod was captured, experimented on, and his technology stolen, but when his powers manifest, he rebels and his captors are forced to trap him in an interdimensional space called the Phantom Zone. Decades pass and Zod is rescued by another Kryptonian survivor by the name of Kal-El in hopes of stopping a rogue Kryptonian AI. But Zod has a different plan: use the AI to take over the planet and create a new Krypton. Ooh, this seems actually pretty cool. Yeah, so Superman saves him. That's an interesting plot for the story here. Saves him, thinking that, both being from Krypton, they would like team up together and battle Brainiac, but he decides to go the other way and use Brainiac to like terraform Earth. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, and rescuing him from captivity is that's a move. Okay. Super strength, super speed, flight, heat vision, freeze breath, extreme durability, weak to kryptonite. So he'll be a good enemy. Yo, I appreciate the love, appreciate the thanks here. Superman, Omni-Man, Shazam, Homelander, who would win? I don't know. Those battles, it's all based on who's writing, but you know, I think Superman is all powerful and all good, whereas people like Omni-Man and Homelander are willing to kill. So that's a step further that they're willing to go. And they're willing to kill innocent people, which Superman, that would be his weakness in the fight that they would use against him. But I still believe Superman could persevere and win somehow. Shazam, I just don't think is quite as powerful, but certainly a threat, but inexperienced. So yeah, that's Lord Zod. Okay, I'm interested in the characters here. This is building up to something. Supporting cast would be the Daily Planet news team, Perry White, the editor, Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, photographer and Superman's best pal, Cat Grant over at the Gossip column, Ron Troop in politics, and Steve Lombard in sports. John Henry Irons, aka Steel. They're going to have him as a LexCorp scientist. Okay. Maggie Sawyer, Metropolis SCU captain. Okay. On Pa Kent. Okay, so in this iteration, they might have you, like, flying back to, Smallville to, like, consult with the earthly parents, Well, I mean, I think all those characters can match Superman with strengths and powers and weaknesses and stuff. I think they share common threads, but I still think Superman comes out on top. That's just where I think. This is not an actual game. This is just someone pitching it. So it's not real. This is not real. We're theorizing, and this is a pitch that someone on Twitter has put this together, and I thought we would talk about it on stream. So yeah, it's not a real game. It's nothing official. It's nothing revealed from any sort of developer or publisher. It's just a fan, coming up with a pitch for, like, how could a Superman game work? Because everyone always says that it's impossible, it's too hard, we don't have the technology, it wouldn't be fun. Nah, all garbage arguments. All right, so enemy factions. All right, you got Inner Gang, group of mercenaries specializing in black market arms dealing, from Star Labs equipment to the latest in LexCorp tech. Can get their hands on anything and aren't afraid to use their goods for their own nefarious gains. Makes sense. Okay. Of course, Brainiac would have minions. Army of hive mind drones connected to the advanced artificial intelligence built to carry out objectives in the physical world. You got LexCorp security, decorated soldiers in highly advanced LexCorp battlesuits made with metal alloy, able to stand toe-to-toe with Superman, powered by a unique energy source, kryptonite. So that would be interesting to see how that plays combat-wise. And you do see here that, obviously, in this game, they've been talking about, like, how can they scale? How can they scale the enemies? He could still rescue cats from trees. He could still, foil bank robbers and stuff like that. But he's also going to need enemies that either exploit his weaknesses or are able to do battle with him. So there you go. Yeah, I think Avengers had some things going in the right direction. Like, they could have told multiple stories over time as a live service game. Obviously it being a co-op game was a good idea. I don't think it being a looter shooter type game was a great idea. And I do think their implementation was not great. They obviously need to make money off of more than microtransactions. So I think expansions and DLCs being free was a weakness that Avengers had, and that's why ultimately they agreed that it ran out of funds, and it just wasn't good in that respect. All right, so Kryptonians could be another enemy faction here. Okay, army of survivors from Superman's homeworld, possessing all the powers of the Man of Steel, hellbent on turning the planet into a new Krypton. Okay, so yeah, there could be more than just Zod coming after Supes in this case, and obviously you could play up the Man of Steel plotline of they come team up with Brainiac and try to terraform the Earth. Okay, you could do that. Additional enemies: Bruno Mannheim, the leader of Inner Gang; Parasite, great Superman villain, former LexCorp employee. Yeah, so they could use Parasite in a way to sort of like sap Superman's powers and then, make you weaker in a fight against him, and then you have to adapt to the situation. Mixie Spitalik, of course, was in Superman Returns as well. ruler of the Phantom Zone, obviously could be really fun. Metallo, head of LexCorp Security, of course he could utilize kryptonite and a robot army, and, him just being a giant robot could be a thing too. Livewire, former radio host, obviously she could do the electricity damage. Toyman, former LexCorp engineer, could be, inventing various devices to attack Superman. For me, I think Henry Cavill's Superman is the best that I've seen. I think even beyond these villains, I think you could pull from like a whole bunch. I know Superman Returns, the video game, had freaking moments where you could play as Bizarro, and that was really cool. And I think Bizarro could also be utilized as an additional enemy here. All right. Art direction: the world, taking inspiration from retro-futuristic art of the 50s and the Art Deco style of Superman the animated series, Metropolis would feel unique. Flying in the city will be alive with locomotion at every elevation, pedestrians, cars on the streets, to elevated highways and railways, snaking around and through buildings, to helicopters, planes, and zeppelins flying next to you above the clouds. So I think all that's a good idea. Obviously, we've played a lot of Superman games, both existing from the animated series to playing like Superman Returns. Even Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League had a pretty decent version of Metropolis, where I think they pulled it off really well. So yeah, I think that's what you want. You want that futuristic style of the 50s and 60s combined with Art Deco. And that's pretty much what it looks like in the comics. Like it's pretty loyal. So the audio of the game, ambient. Hustle and bustle of the city will be present at all times, and thanks to Superman's super hearing, with the click of a button, you can listen to different points of interest within a small radius. So yeah, that would be really cool. Like, hold a button to activate super hearing, and it would point out like various crimes throughout the city, where it would be like, oh, there's a bank robbery here. Meow. There's like a kitten stuck in a tree here. That could be like finding your collectibles or whatever throughout the game. Or it could be Lois Lane calling for help. It could be multiple things, right? So that would be a good way to sort of act as like the, how Spider-Man has his phone and he's got the crime app that lets him know where things happen. Well, Superman just has hearing where he can just sense everything. So, yeah, the new Joker film looks all right. I'm curious to see it. I really enjoyed the first one. I think going with a musical is a bit of a gamble. We'll see about that. That could be a horrible idea, but it is Lady Gaga, so it could be dope. I'm just curious if the story's going to be good and if it pays off. But anyway, let's get back into the combat audio. Inspired by the classic cracking sounds of the animated series, every punch, kick, and laser blast will rock the player with sounds of epic proportions. I think that makes sense. I mean, when you break the sound barrier when you're flying, it needs to have that crack. Obviously, if you're punching someone at full strength, you need to get that satisfying, comic book sound that you get on the page, the fwatoom, just a big hit. You want to feel powerful, and you want to feel that even when an enemy hits Superman. You want to feel that gut punch, and you want to hear that crack of thunder. Or if it's the laser eyes, you want to hear that burning, sizzling laser sound, The score. The underlying score will embody the triumphant heroism that Superman's known for, something fresh that still has undertones of the classic scores from past Superman media. So I think this is also very true. Because I think if you just blast the John Williams themes, it would be cool. It would be cool if you got the licensing for that, but no video game has done that with Superman. It would be cool. And I think some of those themes could work. But I think for everything in the game, whether it's just ambient flying around, or it's combat music, or it's Brainiac's theme, or it's Zod's theme, or, whatever it is, Like, there's got to be all these different sounds and layers of sounds and themes for each of the characters that you really have to get a composer that's really going to sew all this together and still give it that classic vibe where you hear that theme and you're like, yes. And so, we've seen it in other video games for sure. We've seen it in the Spider-Man games. There's a great theme for those games. You need something that's heroic, but you need it to be recognizable and pay homage to the past. So VFX. The world of Superman is fantastical and grand. Whether you're soaring through Metropolis, shooting enemies with intense heat vision, or witnessing a Phantom Zone portal burst open through space-time, the player will be engaged with otherworldly effects to really pull them in. Environment is semi-destructible, cratering the sides of buildings and roads and smashing vehicles. I think that makes sense because, it might be nice to have set-piece moments like Spider-Man does where you can fly through a building and battle an enemy inside the offices or something like that, in the same way that Spider-Man does. It might be cool to have those set-piece moments, but, like, for the most part, you're going to want most of the buildings to be just semi-destructible. And, it was cool that you could do things like pull an antenna tower off the roof of a building and throw it at an enemy like a javelin, or lift the globe of the Daily Planet and throw it at enemies, or, catch it if an enemy were throwing it at you. UI should be a clean, crisp look that meshes with the retro-futuristic art style, the typeface of modern action comics. That actually looks pretty good. I would actually enjoy if they pulled that font, or even use the font that they used for like the Batman and Superman animated series. I think they kind of used a similar Art Deco font throughout that. All right, so let's get meat and potatoes. What's the gameplay? Traversal. The first system players will experience in the game when they take control is the iconic Superman traversal method, flight. Flight system will make you have the speed of an F-18 military jet with the precision of a Porsche. Whether they are going through main missions, following up on Daily Planet leads, or just exploring the city, players will engage with flight at the push of a button. And I think that's something that Superman Returns got right. It was like you could press the Y button and you would like instantly ascend to the sky. And then from there you had like a button that would boost you forward and you just go into like flying like a jet. So that's cool. With any good traversal method, you need obstacles. In most worlds, these obstacles are physical and seen. In Superman's world, he's able to fly through the air, so it only makes sense to have obstacles in the air itself. Utilize an air obstacle system called the turbulence system. Interesting. Okay. Turbulence affects flying objects through shifts in atmospheric pressure, resulting in rough rides through the air. Turbulence system caused from winds, storms, and changes in pressure caused by the tall buildings and air traffic through Metropolis. Turbulence can affect the player negatively and positively. It will force the player to pull hard on triggers and sticks, making Superman tougher to control. Positively, it can create wind tunnels, a la Spider-Man 2, right? To give Superman a major boost in speed. These negative and positive effects are reflected visually through fast and slow-moving wind and leaves, and physically through haptic feedback in the controllers. I think that's cool because, flying into the wind, it's going to slow you down. It's going to make the controller vibrate more. It's going to mean that you got to press harder on the triggers or the sticks or whatever mechanic is allowing you to fly. So that interesting. Combat. Inspired by the epic brawls of Superman the Animated Series and Justice League Unlimited, Superman will use his vast abilities to engage with his enemies in a block parry stamina-based aerial combat system. Makes sense to me. I mean, this is all stuff I've suggested, is that the stamina system from Superman Returns obviously works really well with kind of a Souls-like a stamina system where you have your endurance bar and, certain attacks may expend more stamina than others, heavy attacks or taking damage. Timing your blocks and parries could be really cool because Superman is indeed a brawler and he can take a hit and he can block stuff. So it wouldn't be unusual to see Superman use his arms to block or parry or backhand deflect some sort of attack. That could be really cool. And he could also pick up cars or like pieces of buildings and rocks and the pavement and use it as a shield against his enemies, or even use it as, a weapon. Use it as like boxing gloves, like the Hulk does. He smashes up cars and turns them into boxing gloves, So, could be interesting. Aerial combat. When Superman engages an enemy, he'll automatically hover, triggering aerial combat. Which, I mean, for the most part, yeah. Most enemies, he flies at them and charges at them with a fist. So you could have a charge attack. You could have some hovering stuff where you use the wind and the laser eyes and all the different powers that Superman has, the X-ray vision, to spot whatever the weaknesses are of the enemy, or to see where enemies are, if they're hiding behind buildings or whatever it may be. That could be cool. Basic combat fueled by a block and parry system. Superman can still dodge. Players are incentivized to use block and parry to open up enemies for devastating attacks. They can also charge their abilities in the solar meter. Interesting. All right, Superman's a battery powered by the sun. Okay, so we're getting to the stamina thing that I've talked about, and that Superman Returns implemented really well. In combat, abilities such as heat vision, freeze breath, and super breath deplete this meter. It will refill passively and gain a boost with successful parries and punches. And then that would also be cool if you just like flew up closer to the sun and it would just like regenerate. Solar ultimates. Superman's abilities can unleash devastating solar ultimates that can wipe out groups of enemies. These abilities operate on a cooldown and will also completely take out his solar meter. Yeah, so he kind of has like a new ability from like the New 52 series where he could do the solar flare. But after he did it, he had to like rest for a few days, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, it could be something like that, or maybe like a Fury mode where you could just punch really fast and zip from one enemy to another, just doing a bunch of multi-kills, essentially. That could be really cool. Yeah, I'm with this guy. I'm with this guy on this pitch so far. Health. Superman is extremely durable, but not invincible in battle. Players must be wary of Superman's health, using the solar meter to replenish it. I see that. I don't think we need like a health bar or a game over screen. It's more of like juggling. It would be juggling, what do you call it? The solar meter. It would be more juggling that. Juggle his stamina, juggle the solar meter of like making sure that he's not exhausted and knocked down in combat, where the enemies could go, okay, we've defeated Superman. He'll need time to recover. Let's go destroy the city or do whatever crime we need to do. I would say focus more on that than like a traditional game over health bar type of thing. Okay? So we've got that. Each enemy faction has unique abilities that will negatively affect Superman's health and abilities. Inner gang sonic bombs, which disorient senses. Okay, that could be cool. It could like render X-ray vision or super hearing useless or something for a temporary time. All right. Brainiac. Electronic pulse temporarily stop abilities. Okay, that could be cool too. That could, disables maybe the laser eyes and the breath and things like that. Anything that the solar meter could add to Superman's abilities could be like temporarily disabled. You'd still be able to like fly and punch and do other things, but like for the most part, that could be something that gets disabled. LexCorp soldiers could have kryptonite, which slowly drains health, which I would say in this case, it should drain the solar meter and prevent, kind of what Brainiac does, where it drains the solar meter, or it could, nerf certain abilities where really don't want them to like take away the ability to fly, but make it like difficult to fly and fight until you do something about the kryptonite, get away from it. I don't know. There could be some sort of implementation there. Kryptonians, crushing blows deal devastating damage to health. So once again, it could just be like he's fighting someone that's obviously a rival to him, and so that could be dealing damage to the solar bar and massive damage to stamina, knocking you down, and meaning that you need to restore or block and parry and fill the bar. Puzzles, okay. The battery is nuclear, but the engine's electrical. Fry the circuitry using X-ray vision. It's not working. Intensify it, turn it gamma. Yeah, so puzzles could be fun, and I've gotten into this in my own pitch for the game. Him being an investigative reporter, use those skills in conjunction with his abilities in the fight to stop Brainiac and the Kryptonian invasion. I think in the same way that Spider-Man has utilized Peter Parker's alter ego within the game to have these moving moments where he's juggling the superhero and the real life and, doing things like being the Daily Planet journalist and taking pictures and investigating LexCorp, as a citizen to later use that knowledge as Superman to battle Lex Luthor. So, that's cool. Rescues, whether it's in a story mission or random event, Superman will use his abilities to save citizens through fast-paced, quick-time events. I think that's good, too, saving old ladies and cats from trees and, flying someone to the emergency room after they're in a car wreck or, putting out fires with his freeze breath, foiling bank robberies and saving the hostages, whatever, sort of little events you can do. Obviously, the Spider-Man game has done that quite well. I think Superman could accomplish that in a way. Okay, we got controls here. Left stick to move, right stick for senses, the ability wheel and X-ray vision on the D-pad, L1 to parry or solar ultimate, lock on with L2, R2 to accelerate or dash, R1 is solar ability, Daily Planet tip line is the touchpad, okay. Triangle to interact and grab, circle to dodge and barrel roll, square to attack and heavy attack. I guess heavy attacks would be like hold square. And then X to hover and land, which makes sense. That's what Superman Returns had, was it had a button where if you were on the ground, you could press the button to hover, and then from there you could press it more to automatically get above the skyline of the buildings and get closer to the sun and heal and, get right into aerial combat or whatever you need to be in. Clicking R3 would do a sense pulse. Okay, makes sense. It's a good pitch. I see this. I see the way it's all coming together. Let's see, we're at the main missions. Let's kind of just see where we're at in general on the... Okay, so we're a little past halfway through. We're getting pretty close to the end here. But yeah, I really like what they put forward in this pitch. I think this game could be really interesting. I think it's a good format. I agree with a lot of what's being pitched here. I think the largest disagreement I have with this pitch is the health bar. I think they're on the right track for most things, and it's almost identical to my pitch. So some of it makes sense. Yeah. All right, so main missions here. Centered around the Brainiac takeover and subsequent Kryptonian invasion, Superman will engage in all story beats, boss battles, and other massive set pieces using the full range of gameplay systems from traversal to combat to puzzle solving. I like it. Daily Planet tip line. With so much going on in the city, it's tough to keep up, stay ahead. Perry White has opened the tip lines to help his reporters get leads on stories, from saving cats stuck in trees to confrontations with major supervillains. I think that makes sense. Utilizing the super hearing with the Daily Planet tip line, with, Clark Kent investigating things, and Lois, obviously, it could work. The parasite, dead bodies popping up across Metropolis, each one devoid of all muscle mass, Investigate these deaths and trace your findings to the sewers to confront the parasite. Makes sense. Okay. Save the cat. An old woman has her cat stuck in a tree. Go rescue it. Be careful, it's from a different dimension. Ooh, interesting. Okay. I mean, the cats could be a collectible even. That could be kind of a fun thing that you do throughout the game. Live from Metropolis, Livewire has taken over the broadcast station Metropolis, turning the city into a deadly game show. Not a game show. I hate these. Completer minigames, make it to the finale and take her show off the air. Yeah. Bibbo, #1 fan. Bibbo has taken over Intergang's bar, the Ace of Clubs, and wants to turn it into a positive social spot for the neighborhood, but he's having trouble getting patrons. Help spread the word for Superman's biggest fan. That could be really cool. Yeah. I think that's kind of interesting. Showing that Superman is both a hero of the city and of the community. And so you could kind of play off that a little bit. Boys Aren't Us, kids around Metropolis have been receiving mysterious gifts that come to life. Destroy them and track their signal to confront the Toyman. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of reminding me of the Arkham games, of how each villain had their own side story within the world, and the more you explored the game and progressed, throughout the main story, you would encounter these various stories and you'd explore deeper to resolve them. City activities, hot off the presses. Daily Planet News archive truck has crashed, scattering newspapers across the city. Collect the newspapers and learn about the history of Metropolis. Okay, that's a pretty cool collectible idea. Jimmy Olsen needs help grabbing action shots of his best pal Superman before he gets fired. So once again, one thing I've had in my pitch is that Superman being the journalist, you could have the camera be a thing where it's like, it could be the in-game photo mode, and it could also be for missions, take pictures of, secret LexCorp tech, sneak around, take pictures of it, publish that in the Daily Planet. It could be for identifying enemies. You could, take a photo, and then you get, a biography of each enemy. And then in this case, it could be just catching cool photos of Superman and using them to make sure that Jimmy doesn't get fired. So, I mean, that could be a thing as well. Brainiac factories. Brainiac has taken over defunct LexCorp facilities and turned them into his own robot factories, shut them down, and learn of Krypton's history. Okay, that could be really cool. Interesting way to show the history of Krypton and have some sort of collectible or lore piece that allows you to discover more of that. And I think it also mentioned earlier that they wanted multiple playable areas, like Metropolis, Smallville Farm, maybe a prologue that takes place in Krypton, and then some stuff in the Phantom Zone, which I think could be a a boss rumble area. Intergang hideouts. Bruno Mannheim is in prison, but his gang is still alive. Find Intergang's hideouts in the city, put a stop to the black market dealings. There could be a moment part way through the game where Brainiac or somebody busts the prison open and, Bruno escapes and a bunch of others do. Kryptonians have invaded and planted large terraformers in each sub-district. Destroy them to put a stop to the invasion. That could be cool. And maybe you have to somehow research and discover the weakness to that. Random events. Metropolis never sleeps. Protect the city from intergang weapon deals, remnants of Brainiac, LexCorp ambushes, rifts in the Phantom Zone, and save citizens from random disasters. Makes sense. Progression. Skill tree. Gain XP through completing missions, activities, random events to upgrade Superman's skills. Combat abilities, traversal, fighting prowess, vitality, and defense. Abilities could include heat vision, freeze breath, super breath, and solar ultimates. Traversal would be Superman's flight skill, making him faster and more agile. And then, of course, they're showing Spider-Man's, skill trees as a good way to understand that. All right, abilities. Unlock through progressing through the story, combat and puzzles. Solar, okay, so heat vision, beams of intense heat, freeze breath, gush of freezing wind, sonic wave, a wave of disorienting sound. Okay. Solar ultimates. Okay, so yeah, the solar flare would destroy all enemies. Thunderclap stuns all enemies. That's a good move. Ice Age, freeze all enemies. Heat Wave, damage all enemies. Yeah, Superman Returns had a thing where you could alter like the range of heat vision and freeze breath, where it was like if you push the trigger in a certain way, it would like widen the beam essentially. So I mean, you could definitely do something like that. That could be useful. Main suit. Original design taking inspiration from all eras of Superman's comic, TV, and movie history, resembling the classic iconography we all know and love. I mean, that makes sense. Alternate suits unlocked through story progression and in-game activities. Superman will have a host of unlockable costumes to wear, from original designs to comic-inspired suits. I think that's a great idea, too, to just pay homage to all the suits, and then maybe if there's a moment where the death of Superman happens, have the black suit, The story. I think a lot of this is retracing a lot of what we've read already. Okay. Prologue. See, I guess the prologue, Destruction of Krypton. Play as Jor-El. Prepares a space pod. His wife Laura puts their only son Kal-El in the pod. Initiates the takeoff, and they record a message. Rocket shoots to the atmosphere. Jor-El and Laura tearfully watch as their child takes off, fearful and hopeful. Narrowly escapes and heads for Earth. Breaks through Earth's atmosphere and disappears into the clouds. Act 1, the Superman. Okay. Clark Kent, investigate. Yeah, so it just basically skips, to the good stuff, where it's like he's already in the city. Okay. Lois gets caught in the middle of a weapons deal with a local black market dealer inner gang. He rushes to the elevator, runs out the rooftop exit, rips off his clothes to reveal his other identity. The costume hero Superman takes to the skies. Superman stops inner gang. Lois asks for an interview. The world deserves to know who saves them. He politely declines. He isn't ready and isn't sure the world is either. Perry gives the team an assignment, LexCon, a tech summit showcasing the future of LexCorp, hosted by its CEO, Lex Luthor. Okay. LexCon is on, and reporters from all around the world have gathered. Clark and Lois browse the tech indestructible humanoid robots, self-replicating crystals, and an advanced artificial intelligence known as Brainiac. Lex believes that the only way for humanity to survive is to adapt. Won't let anything in his way, including Superman. To prove this, he invites the team to test out Brainiac. Clark obliges, and the AI glitches Kal-El's son, Jor-El. Eradicator protocol activated. Brainiac infects the surrounding tech. Robots attack the attendants. Superman stops them, but not before Brainiac escapes into LexCorp's network. AI is downloading data from across the globe. It's only a matter of time before it accesses something dangerous. Superman enlists the help of LexCorp scientist John Henry Irons to track down Brainiac. Yeah, I like the ideas here for the story so far. Act 2, Eradicator Protocol. Irons tracks Brainiac to an abandoned LexCorp factory. Superman discovers that Brainiac has reinstated the factory's automated systems before using it to build more robots and harvest data. Shuts the factory down, downloads the data. Brainiac is alien. Sort through the info and learn from a planet known as Krypton, as well as its directive, harvest all data and destroy. Lois tells the team that from her own findings, she was able to discover Brainiac was part of a secret LexCorp project dating back to before Lex even took over. Brainiac sends fleets across Metropolis, attacking multiple key locations. More questions and time running out. Superman heads to the only place with answers, LexCorp. Okay. I mean, I was also thinking the Fortress of Solitude could be like a place for tutorials and training and lore and, for you to like every time you defeat an enemy, you could have trophies there and whatever. Um, Superman and Lois go to LexCorp, being met with a resistance, resort to breaking in. They sneak past Lex's kryptonite-infused security and into his office. They access his computer and unearth that 30 years ago an alien ship crash-landed in the outskirts of Metropolis. The company was contacted to study and harvest the technology program, codenamed Cadmus. Lasted a few years and was shut down until recently. Lower levels of the building, they find the ship connected to LexCorp's mainframe. Superman interrogates Lex and coughs up the information. You aren't the only Kryptonian who crash landed on Earth. Ship had a pilot. The only way to stop Brainiac is to find them and bring them in to access the ship and shut it down. There's only one problem. The pilot is imprisoned in an alternate dimension. The Phantom Zone. So Superman attaches that tech to himself, flies through Metropolis, gains speed and inertia to rip open a portal to the dimension. That's cool. Battles through hordes of interdimensional beings. Master of the Phantom Zone, Mixie Spitalik, to rescue the pilot, a Kryptonian by the name of Lorzod. Government experiment. Yeah, we read about this in his bio. So they escape together, but then, alright, Brainiac has infected all of Metropolis and preparing to harvest the last bits of data. Troy, team comes up with a plan, gets Zod to LexCorp to deactivate the AI before they arrive. Metropolis is attacked by a Brainiac robot the size of a skyscraper. Pretty cool. Superman stops the machine while the rest of the team works on shutting down the AI. Battles the machine, taking it apart piece by piece, isn't able to stop it from replicating the lost parts. Irons and Superman come up with the strategy, release all Superman's energy in a solar flare, an EMP that will force Brainiac to reboot. Flies above the city and releases the solar flare. Zod is able to take over directives. Last Sun Initiative. Brainiac activates. Brainiac reboots, sends out a signal. Superman confronts Zod, who tells him the truth. We were sent here to rule. So that's when Zod would betray him. That's pretty cool. Krypton knew of its impending doom and ordered an initiative called the Last Sun. One child from every family was to be sent to different planets in the galaxy to find a habitable world for colonization. Zod tells Superman his plan, take over Metropolis and establish a new Krypton on Earth. Superman declines. He tries to reason with Zod, but his hate for humanity is too big to overcome. Hundreds of pods carrying Kryptonian survivors crash down to Metropolis. They attack the city with reckless abandon. That's a nice, second, third act kind of twist here. Superman attempts to stop Zod, flying across the city as pods rain down. He's overwhelmed, and Zod opens a portal and sends him to the Phantom Zone. Yikes. Nation of New Krypton. Superman trapped in the Phantom Zone. Kryptonians take over. Crystalline terraforming structures erupt across the city. Kryptonian soldiers patrol the skies, and citizens are rounded up into encampments. Lex's security team fights back, but they aren't enough. The city needs Superman. In order to bring Superman out of the Phantom Zone, they need tech from Zod's pod, so the team comes up with a plan to break into Zod's fortress. Lois takes points, sneaking in and out of Kryptonian stronghold with the help of Irons. At their base, Iron uses the tech to fashion a Phantom Zone projector, blasts open a portal, and Superman rockets out ready for a fight. That's cool. Last Sons of Krypton. Zod and his army have taken over the city and are gearing up for expansion. Phantom Zone projector in hand. Superman knows the only way to stop him is to put him back. Enters his fortress. Zod extends one last invitation to join the cause. Superman declines. So they attack, punching holes through buildings, cratering roads, decimating landscapes. Irons and Lewis are able to sneak into the fortress and shut down Brainiac once and for all. Using all his power and skill, Superman is able to overtake Zod. Defeated, Zod warns him, they will never trust you. Superman fires up the projector and banishes Zod to the Phantom Zone. The epilogue, Man of Tomorrow. The world is in a state of unrest, so the Daily Planet gets to work. Lois Lane writes the story of the Kryptonian invasion, exposing LexCorp's shady history with the government and their attempts to cover up their involvement. The world's trust in Superman has fallen, so Clark Kent finds a way to bring it back. He writes an expose for the Daily Planet, detailing his entire life from escaping Krypton's destruction to being raised by the Kents, taking on the identity of Superman. Oh, would this be him exposing his secret? I don't know if I like that, but Clark hears someone scream for help, this time in front of everyone. He changes into Superman, takes off to save the day. No, I don't like that. I think it gets really dull when everyone knows who the hero is, especially when it's Superman and Spider-Man and stuff like that. That's a big disagreement for me, because I like the balancing of the hero and the alter ego and trying to keep it secret, and having to find a place to change into your costume, whatever, whether it's a phone booth or a rooftop or whatever. Okay. Post credits, the Ultraman Project. Lex Luthor stands in his office overlooking Metropolis, visited by a highly decorated member of the military, General Sam Lane. Ooh, twist. He informs Lex that they've captured a Kryptonian and are continuing Project Cadmus. It's time we made a Superman of our own. He gives him a folder, the Ultraman Project. Okay, this could be like DLC stuff too. Like they could tease this at the end, and then this could be like DLC chapters. Last daughter of Krypton. Clark gets ready for another day at work when a ship crash lands in the bay outside of Metropolis. He flies over and investigates to find a woman climbing out of the wreckage. Her name, Kara Zor-El. Oh, that could be cool. Thanks for reading. Okay. I gotta say, this is a really good pitch, and I agree with most of it. So once again, I do have a link in the description down below. But James Sigfield, man, I got to give you a thumbs up, man. This is quite a story, quite a pitch. I agree with a lot of the ideas. I think the only things I disagree on are the health bar, because I think you can implement stamina and endurance in a way that's more compelling. And I would say don't reveal Superman's alter ego. I don't think that's a good way to go there. But once again, gamers, I want to thank you for watching. Check the links in the description down below as well for Shackcast episode 3, which was my pitch on a Superman game, and then also check the link below that, which is what Superman Returns did right. So what we could learn about that game and apply to future Superman games. So once again, I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Give us a review on the podcast outlet that you're listening to us on. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.